Some of the quotes of Swami Vivekananda, like strength is life, weakness is death. You will be more nearer to the heavens by playing football rather than Gita. Now, the second quote seems to be a bit controversial, but if you read the whole thing, he says that you will better understand the strength of Krishna, the mighty genius of Krishna, with a little bit of stronger muscles in you. You will understand the Upanishads better, the message of Upanishads better, if you have a little bit of stronger blood in you. Why he said that, we need to understand the context, because the times he lived in, India was plagued with acute poverty, famine, drought, malnutrition. All these issues were very relevant in India at that point of time because of the colonial impact. So for India, he thought, for his motherland, he thought that it is first important to uplift the masses. It is important for the youth to have strength to first build India materially, and then they can adopt the spiritual heritage that India has. So he wanted to, exchange the science and technology of the West with the humanism and spiritualism of India. I mean, in 1893, when he was en route to America for the religious conference, he was en route through Japan, and that is precisely when he met Jamshed Tata. And Jamshed Tata was on his industrial exposition. He was finding ways for India to be an industrial nation, and he went to Japan for that. And en route Yokohama to Vancouver, even Swami Vivekananda met him at that point of time. So they shared their vision, and at that point of time, Swami Vivekananda had an idea of having a science institute with Jamshed Tata. And later on, this was in 1893, and later on they did not meet again. But in 1898, Jamshed Tata had written a letter to Swami Vivekananda regarding this particular thing of setting up a research institute. Well, it did not happen when both of them were alive, because in 1902, Swami Vivekananda passed away, and in 1904, Jamshed Tata passed away. But in 1909, their shared vision, when they were not alive, it came true, because Tata launched an institute which was known as Tata's Science Institute in 1909, and which was renamed as Indian Institute of Science. So he had a vision then, and you can see the strength in his words and strength in his vision, that such things. And he talked about woman empowerment at that point of time, when practices like no widow should get remarried, sati pratha, all these were prevalent. At that point of time, he spoke about women empowerment. Now, let's look at some of the reforms in the Hindu thought process which were introduced by Swamiji. It was like shifting from an orthodox to a liberal view of Hinduism. First one is, he revived the concept, or you can say the virtue of compassion in Hinduism. People were quite engrossed with the ritualistic processes and image worship. Image worship is not a wrong thing, but they were more involved in the ritualistic process. When it comes to poor and downtrodden, they just brushed aside. They said that it is their prarabdha karma, they were suffering. Why should we interfere in God's action? Swamiji countered this. He said, if it was their karma to suffer, it is our karma to relieve the suffering. So, service to mankind is service to God. It is a religious worship. Nar seva hi Narayan seva hai. So, this concept of practical Vedanta, practical application of the basic principles of Vedanta in solving the problems of day to day life. For centuries, Vedantic principles were only intended to help people for liberation, but Swamiji showed that these principles can be applied even in ordinary life. The second important reform, you could say even a little bit controversial also, annihilation of caste. He was against the caste system. Though Veda mentions rishis like Satyakama and Jabala who were from the Shudra community, later in India Shudras were not allowed for chanting Gayatri mantra and also the Vedic studies. They were prohibited. After so many ages, Swamiji allowed Shudra to join as monks in ashram and worship in temple. He in fact initiated many Hindu untouchables into Gayatri Mantra in Kolkata on the birthday of his guru Sri Ramakrishna and converted them into Brahman. This was a controversial step, but Swamiji was of the belief that caste conversion is an innovative solution to religious conversion. Though this is something some people will agree and some people might not agree, but this is what he thought would be an innovative solution for the problem of religious conversion. Third is women empowerment within the purview of religion. The Veda mentions many women like Gargi, Maitreya who were, you know, as women seers. Indian women were not allowed to chant Veda mantra and join as monks. In fact, Swamiji removed this orthodox thinking and allowed women to chant Vedic mantra. In fact, he also established a separate dedicated ashram for women known as Sarada Mission. He says the best thermometer to the progress of a nation is its treatment of its women. There is no chance for the welfare of the world unless the condition of women is improved. Women must be put in a position to solve their own problems in their own way. No one can or ought to do this for them. This was his words way back, 120 years back. In fact, he was also, even if we look outside the religious purview, he was against the sati system. He encouraged widow remarriage at that point of time. The next reform is the overseas travel. Swamiji was the first Hindu monk to cross the ocean and preach in USA. During this time frame when Swamiji, like in the later 19th century, overseas travel to foreign lands like USA and UK was considered a sin. It was believed that if you cross the black water, then you lose your caste and will be out of Hinduism. So Hindu Orthodox people were afraid to cross ocean. Swamiji did not accept this superstition and became the first Hindu monk to travel outside India crossing the ocean. Earlier, only Buddhist monks went out of India. No Hindu monk ever tried this. Swamiji even used to eat with foreigners and made disciples in foreign lands, including women disciples like Sister Nivedita. But he was in for a rude shock on returning back to India. He was not allowed to enter the Dakshineshwar temple where his guru had lived a major part of his life. The temple management denied his entry into temple only because Swamiji had lost his Hindu status while eating with foreigners. But only due to him we can say that currently many Hindu monks are able to travel abroad to spread Hinduism without any social violence. Today there is no social restriction for anybody to travel outside India for a business reason, tourism or preaching anything. The next reform is Vedanta in public. Vedanta for general public. Vedanta is the most important, you can say, the philosophical part of the Veda, which is also called as Upanishads. Earlier Upanishads were studied only by monks in forest. Those texts were not available for common householders. Later on in 8th century, Adi Shankaracharya taught this Upanishadic teachings, Advaita Vedanta, through his Brahma Sutra Bhashya. However, his work were limited only to a particular community due to the rigid caste system that existed during that time. Swamiji had decided to spread these Vedic teachings among common people, and in fact, he went on to publish Upanishads in local languages. He emphasized to publish all Vedic texts in common men language. This was faced with lot of criticism, but what he told, his teaching is summarized in one quote: each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, both external and internal. Do this either by work, that is Karma Yoga, or worship, Bhakti Yoga, or psychic control, Raja Yoga, or philosophy, Jnana Yoga, by one or more or all of these methods and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas or rituals or books or forms are but secondary details. The next reform is the patriotism in him. Earlier, monks in traditional sense hardly used to bother about social issues. Swamiji was an exception to this. He said practical patriotism means not a mere sentiment or even emotion of love of the motherland, but a passion to serve our fellow countrymen. Though he was set out for religious reform, he inspired many freedom fighters like Subhash Chandra Bose, Mahatma Gandhi, Rajagopalachari, Balagangadhar Tilak. There is a book on his lectures from Colombo to Almora. It was so popular among the freedom fighters in jail that each one of them had at least one copy with them to ignite the patriotism in their mind. The situation was such that British government wanted to ban and close Ramakrishna mission. It was saved due to the intervention of Holy Mother Sarada Devi. She clarified that this was a religious organization and had nothing to do with politics. It is a apolitical, which is averse to politics. Subhash Chandra Bose, in fact, told, if Swamiji had been alive, I would have been at his feet. He was the yogi of the highest spiritual level in direct communion with the truth. Mahatma Gandhi said, I have gone through his works very thoroughly, and after having gone through them, the love that I had for my country became a thousandfold.